Okay, hey guys. Today we're gonna record another PodCAPS episode. Today's topic is gonna be relationships in college, whether it be friendships, family, or romantic. And recording with me today would be three other CAPS ambassadors. My name is Yris.
I'm Daniela.
My name's Leslie.
And I'm Nico.
So today we're just gonna be, talking about how we manage these relationships and what other ways, just how we make time for these things. So one of the first questions I want to ask is, how do you guys schedule hangouts? 'Cause I know as we're older, our friends are also having busy schedules, so it's kind of hard to overlap those. And so yeah, how do you guys plan hanging out with your friends and things like that?
I think for me, I've kind of reached that point of adulthood where if it doesn't go on the calendar, it's not gonna happen. I literally sit there with my friends and I'm like, okay, when are we hanging out? Like, let's see what times we have on our schedule that match. It's kind of different whenever I'm hanging out with like a friend that I met in college or someone else that goes to college, because they understand, like they're like, okay, yeah, you need to look at your calendar, like let's see what our gaps are. But then if I'm like trying to hang out with someone that does not have the same busy schedule as me, they'll kind of be like, why do you need to look at your calendar? Like, like just schedule a time. But I feel like now, since I'm like I'm getting older, I feel like that's just kind of how like adult friendships or relationships work. Like you're not just gonna like hang out on a whim. Um, like it has to be more planned and it has to be like scheduled ahead. Like I know like with the friend I wanted to hang out like 2 weeks ago, and we scheduled it for 2 weeks in advance because that was like the only time that we could find. So I feel like just mainly just using my calendar and like having like a sit down conversation like this with the person and being like, okay, like when are you free and like when are we both free? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, for me, at the beginning of every semester, me and my friends, we send each other our schedules and we're like, okay, we see the gaps where we fit. And a lot of the times we don't have any gaps. So I'll do this thing where I'll use like school events as an excuse to invite them. So like an event for one of my classes, I'll be like, hey, you guys should come to this. It will be really cool. Whether or not I think my friends will like the event, because I just want to see them. It's I like using them as excuses.
I think for me, I mean, not to say that some hangouts don't happen in a whim. I feel like, but they're like Daniela said, I feel like they're at least they're more planned now. I'm like, well, when do you have time this week? Or when it's like it's all calendar based. Even if the person doesn't own a calendar, they're still like, well, I still have certain things I have to do for certain times a day. So they're still running on some kind of like mental calendar. And I'm like, okay, well, let me look at mine because and when I'm available so we can hang out. So yeah, it is more definitely planned, and sometimes it doesn't happen till like way later. Like I have a friend that we've been pushing off going out, and it's just because life gets in the way. Where whether either whether I'm like, oh well, I have this thing that I really want to get done, and then she's like, well, then I also have this thing I really want to get done, and it's just like it'll happen, but it's been getting pushed.
Like even if it takes a long time, you still find the time to like eventually hang out and kind of make it known that you're planning to hang out. You're not just trying to make excuses. I feel like that's also a very big thing.
Yeah, and we're also like college girlies, so we're both a little broke sometimes. So like, I feel like Daniela does have a point. Like people in college understand that, like, hey, like you have stuff to do, and like you have things to go out and do. So I understand.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, like being broke. Because I know sometimes I ask my friends, like, can we do something that's free? Like, can we like go on a walk, or like, like go on a drive, or just like maybe just have like a chit chat session. I don't know, like something that's free. But and then I feel like going off of kind of what Nico said, like how you use like events to like see your friends. I feel like I've done that, and then I also kind of use the like study hangouts a lot, like where we like want to hang out and we want to be in each other's presence, but we have all this work to get done. So then we just like plan like a homework hangout or like a study hangout. And I feel like that always like works pretty well because we can hold each other accountable, and like we can still talk, but we're also doing our work. I just feel like it depends also like on the person too, because sometimes you may just be talking all the time.
Oh,
But
no,
I feel like
I was about to say.
I feel like some work still gets done if like we make progress on assignments. That's like a win for me.
Yeah. For me, so I'm sure you guys know that I have a job now which takes up a lot of my time, which is why I'm only at school for 2 days a week, and I attend our weekly meetings only online. And then like my friends, like I have like a little friend group, and there's like 4 of us in total. So whenever we hang out, we try to do it with all 4 of us. We never try to do one-on-one. So whenever when we try to hang out, it has to be like the perfect timing where all our school and work schedules work together, and just like also finding the energy. Kind of one of my friends, they like using spring break to kind of relax because they're not very social, and going out all school is like a lot, you know? Another one of my friends likes to do more social things, and sometimes I don't have the energy to go to a concert or like even like a mini thing. And another one just like it's like very hard to kind of meet all of our needs to wanting to hang out, but also finding time, you know?
Yeah.
Oh, and the only time I could really go like hang out on a whim, like without planning it, would be with my girlfriend. Just because I know my energy doesn't get drained when I'm with her, but with everyone else, I could get a social battery lower, you know.
Yeah.
So if I want to hang out, I need to have preparation. I can't really do it spontaneous unless it is with her. So my friends like, oh, let's hang out right now. I'm like, I don't know. I need like a 2 to 3 day notice, you know.
Yeah. No, I relate a lot to that about like needing that 2-3 day notice before hanging out, because otherwise I just in my brain I can't do it. I can't do anything spontaneous. It feels like, oh, it's too soon, it's too fast. But I guess when I hang out with people, I like being very passive. I don't like doing stuff. I like just, sitting down, chatting, stuff like that. Like, I guess just being like around that person. That's why I like events, because you're just around them and you're like going with the flow of the energy around you. You're not focused on doing this specific thing.
And like for me, hanging out is I always just go out to eat. That's the only hanging out I really do with people, or walking around Target, and that's like kind of the end of it. So it's like if every time I hang out, I spend like $20. I'm not sure if I want to hang out as often as I'm doing. Like what Daniela said, trying to find something free to do. But it's like, do I really want to have people at my house all the time? You know? But I would enjoy like a good card ride, or just in the car running errands. Like that's what I do with my girlfriend. She's like, oh, I'm going to Walmart. I'm like, okay, let's go. And I just sit there and walk her and follow her around Walmart while she figures what she wants to get.
But I think that also speaks to, I guess, that type of people, because I feel like there's people that definitely need energy battery, like to hang out with, where I'm like, okay, for you, I definitely need like prepare. But then I feel like for some other people, I'm just like, oh yeah, sure, let's go, because I know, at least in my sense, I don't feel like I need an energy battery. I'm just like, okay, I'm like, this person's gonna cheer up my day, or they're gonna make my day better. So that to me helps a lot, just because I live in a dorm. So the amount of people that I've met here have seen me in my bad days and my good days. So I feel like the energy battery thing, at least with them, doesn't really matter to me, because if I'm having a bad day, I know they'll make it better. And if I'm having a good day, they'll make it a lot better. I feel like, and there's with other people where I'm like, maybe I do need a battery energy with you. I need a good mental preparation.
Yeah.
And then I think we discussed it a little bit, but kind of to piggyback off of just scheduling it, what would you consider hanging out? I know we did some study dates, either eating out or just events. Are there any other categories that you'd consider hanging out you think that people would find like weird?
For me, I do a lot of what's called like parallel play, quote unquote, of just like, being around someone and just not even really acknowledging them, just being in their presence. I like that. I know it's not everyone's cup of tea, and sometimes it can feel awkward, especially if you're not that close to people. But with someone that I've known for like 12 years, it's the most natural thing that we can do, just be in each other's presence.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like would you guys consider like FaceTime calls or phone calls like hanging out with someone?
I think so. Depends on the person though. Like Nico said, it's definitely like I'm not gonna apply it to everybody because not with everybody it feels the most natural thing in the world. I have my friend who I definitely use it a lot with, and I have certain people that I feel like just face to face is a lot better. So I feel like it's a individual situation in certain friendships, but I think those are the friendships where it just definitely feels the most natural to me to have those type of conversations.
Yeah, I feel like it depends on the comfort level, because I've definitely done that with like my boyfriend, like where we're just there, like we're like both on our computers or like both just sitting there and like not talking to each other, but we're just there. So that would like I consider hanging out. I think just anything where I'm with the person, I feel like I consider hanging out. It doesn't matter what we're doing. Like I feel like for me, like we don't have to do anything extravagant like to hang out, you know? Like we don't have to like spend a lot of money or like go somewhere far. Like I'm cool with like, oh, let's go get ice cream or like even like let's just go for a walk or like let's just sit here. Like if you want to just sit there and meditate, like that's hanging out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I know I mentioned a little before about like having energy to hang out even when you do have the time, and I'm sure you guys like I know you guys have busy schedules too, where like when you do have downtime, you kind of want to keep it to yourself. How would you like, if someone sees your schedule and you're showing them like, oh, you're free here, how do you kind of break it to them? Oh, I kind of want to rest that day. Like, how would you communicate that with someone?
I think I was really bad at it before. I've honestly just gotten better at it this year or like cuz I'm 22, so I would say in my 22nd year of life, I've gotten good at like just communicating like my boundaries with people or just like communicating my needs. Like definitely at first it feels like oh, like you're just making excuses. Like I still feel that way sometimes when I'm like, oh, like I'm not making excuses. I just have like XYZ going on, so I just kind of want to be alone now. So I feel like communicating not only your needs, but also like I don't know, like just being straightforward with that person, if that makes sense. Like to whatever you have going on. Like, hey, I need time for myself. Like I've had a lot this week. I just need like this alone time. And I mean I've never like for the most part I feel like people are understanding. I feel like whenever you just explain it to them, they'll be like, oh, okay, like I get it. Like, they're human too. They probably feel that way as well.
I was gonna say that, yeah, especially in situations where you've had your boundaries crossed before, it can be very hard to um, start asserting yourself with your boundaries with new people that you surround yourself with. And it's hard to get yourself into that mental headspace of I'm safe now. I can do XYZ now. I can be straightforward with these people, and there's not going to be anything scary that I have to be worried about.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that also says a lot, at least because I feel like I've also just gotten better at communicating my feelings and communicating what I need. And it was weird at first, but through like 2 years of therapy, it finally kicked in that hey, I need to start being an adult and handling these things like an adult, and that means sitting down and talking with people about what's bothering you. And it's hard. And it's hard, especially because like I'm a crier. So it's like I want to get out what I need to say before I start crying.
Yeah. It
You
can
know?
definitely be uncomfortable because I've had those like sit down conversations where it's like stuff has been bothering me, and like if it's not okay in my head, then it's like not okay, you know, and you have to just say it. And then on the topic of like boundaries and like hanging out, I feel like if there has been a time when someone does not understand like what I'm communicating or is like crossing a boundary, I feel like then that becomes like a person that I don't want to have around, you know? Like if you're constantly not understanding of what I'm telling you and like my life, then you know, then maybe we shouldn't hang out. Yeah.
Yeah, because I feel like I've learned that not everybody likes to sit down and talk, but I mean, at least for me, like that, I feel like that's a must have in my friendship just because, like, hey, like, if something's bothering me, not just me to you, but also you to me, like, I always want you to sit down and talk to me about it. So I feel like that to me says a lot about people just because the people that I now start hanging out with, they also like to sit down and talk about it and what bothers them, like what I can do to maybe like help and make their day better or just help them be there and try to be understanding.
Yeah.
I feel like whoever you surround yourself by, it should be where somebody respects your boundaries. So you're not having the same conversation over and over again, because that in itself could be energy draining. And then a question I wanted to ask is, do you think there's a difference between the friends you meet in college or like, you know, who have that more sense of maturity and understanding schedules? Do you think that differs with people who, like friends you've had that aren't in the college sense? Like, do you think people with busier schedules understand it more than those who have a little bit more of an open schedule?
I think that people with busier schedules definitely do understand it more. My friends who work, any of my friends who work, they understand it more than anyone else. And I often have downtime. Sometimes I'll be sitting in the UC and I'll be doing homework. And not all of the time, if I see a friend pass by, I want them to come sit down and, you know, join me for my homework because it feels awkward after a while. And sometimes I'll have friends who do that, and that bothers me. But the friends I have who work will often understand, okay, yeah, he's doing something. I can say hi, but not overstay that welcome.
Yeah. Yeah, I think people with like busier schedules, they definitely do understand like right away because you know they're living it, like they're experiencing it themselves. But I feel like also like the friends that I had before college, I think just because they see like everything I'm doing or like I tell them about it, they become like understanding. Like they're like, oh, I get you're busy. So sometimes whenever we're wanting to hang out, they kind of like leave it up to me because they're like, well, when are you free? Like they're like, oh, I'm like pretty open, but they ask me like what do you need? Like what day works better for you? But I feel like definitely like people with like if like whether they like work full time or like go to school full time, they just understand it a little bit more because it's like their lived experiences as well. You know, like y'all are relating in that way that y'all are both like really busy.
To pick what you said, Daniela, do you think it really depends on how aware they are of your lives? You know, if they know how busy you are always posting, you're always communicating it. You think that's what it takes for people to understand more, that you're not just trying to brush them off in a way, how it's just kind of an energy thing and schedule thing.
Yeah, I think so. Because if you know if they don't like really know what you're doing, then I feel like that like kind of think they just think like, oh, you're ignoring them or like blowing them off or something. And like I get, because this is something that I've not struggled with, but like I've experienced, because I am kind of like not a bad texter, but I just won't respond right away. Like I'm not texting 24/7, you know?
Yeah.
And then, but people have that in their minds that like, oh, everyone has their phone 24/7 with them. But it's like not all those hours are not for texting.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's like what I've experienced where I haven't responded for a while. And then like people are like, oh, it's because you were just busy, so it's okay. Like, you know, like they don't, I feel like now I don't really like come across people being mad at it because it's like, oh, we're busy. You didn't have time to reply to a text. So yeah.
Yeah.
For me, I do have a friend like that, where like they don't reply after a while, and at first I'd kind of be discouraged by it. Then after a while, I'm like, oh, that's just how they are. It's not a me thing. It's not a personal thing. Just kind of learning to understand. Oh, that's just how they text. That's just their energy, things like that. When they want to reply, they will, and they are there all the way. Like I get where people don't want to just text for 2 seconds and then be busy again. You know, they want to have time set aside to have a full conversation. That's not in and out.
Yeah, yeah. I think because coming like from high school, everyone had the same schedule, right? Like, so I feel like then like there's a huge like difference once you're out of high school because everyone's doing different things. So we all have different schedules. So I feel like just being aware that it's not personal, like it's nothing to do with you, but it's everything to do with like how that person is, like their schedule, like what's you know, like what's going on in their life right now. Like, you know, it's like understanding that they have other stuff going on, like they have life going on. Yeah.
You know, like for me, I recently became full-time at my job, and I work 5 days a week now, but my schedule is always changing. I don't have a consistent schedule where I could be like, okay, on Fridays at this time, I'm always free. You know, like in a span of 3 weeks, I was closing all week, then I had mid shifts all week, and this week I'm opening all week. So it's like I can't really plan it until I get my schedule, and then also feel how I feel at the end of the week, at the end of the day. You know, after the shift or even before it, if I actually do have that energy still to want to hang out. But I feel like we said, to schedule plans ahead. So I could be like, okay, after work, I'm going to hang out with this person. So now I have the energy to do this, where at work, I'm not just going to be like, oh, I just got off and now I have to go hang out because I already expected it, you know?
Yeah.
I hate hanging out with people after like classes or after work. I hate it because I'm already drained. And it's just terrible. I hate it. But the people in my life understand that.
Yeah, because it's just really important how understanding people around you are. But yeah, continue.
I was gonna say, I think, it's more so if I already have my day planned, it's like, and I already know the kind of energy that I need to be putting in for the day, and you're asking me to hang out at the end of my day, I'm like, I don't think it's gonna happen.
Yeah.
I'm like, respectfully, I'm like, I'm tired. I'm like, I prepared the set energy I had for today, and I'm like, I already have my plans. I'm like, I just got done. I'm like, I don't think it's happening today. Like, if you didn't tell me about it at the beginning of the day, it's probably not going to happen.
Okay, so another thing, we were talking just about scheduling, what's hanging out, setting those boundaries, having the energy. But I think one thing that's like really big on like reaching out to people and hanging out is like kind of remembering they exist in a way. Kind of sometimes life happens, like we say, and it's like we're not intentionally trying to forget people, but there's a thing that, you know, I always think about, which is called object permanence, where if you don't see them, they don't exist kind of way. I know it's like really relevant, or like, what was it, relevant? Was a word for it, where it's like more apparent in like people with ADHD, or even like, I mean, more commonly in like infants, where if you walk out the room, they think you exist, or disappear, or like when you cover your face and play peekaboo, they don't think you exist anymore. And I feel like that's something I struggle with. Like, I feel like I talk to the same 5 people, but then there's like 4 more that I haven't reached out to. I kind of forget. They're not on my radar at the moment, you know? So I feel like, you know, how do you guys manage those friendships where they're kind of more on the back burner, even if it's not intentional?
With those relationships, for me, those are usually long time relationships, people that I've known for like 11 years or so. But it's not even really back burner relationships because they're my forefront relationships and the relationships I care about the most. But it's just, again, a passive relationship where we're not always hanging out, we're not always texting, we're not always, doing something together. But they're the most important people to me. Um, and with those relationships, it's a thing of just really like making the effort yourself of uh like reminding yourself, okay, yeah, I haven't talked to this person in a while, or you just realize it and okay, I haven't talked to this person in a while, I should reach out. Or again, like what I was saying earlier about the events, inviting them to events, and you only see them for a little bit, but it's still a moment of connection. It's always the little stuff that counts a lot.
As I say, yeah, I feel like at least the people that I think for me the hardest thing is in the sense of object permanence is like the people that I can't like are harder to see. Like the person I've been planning for weeks with, she's no longer at UTA, so it is a lot harder. And for me, it's like I keep her on my pinned list of my iPhone messages because I'm like, that's my friend. Like, like she's my close friend. So I'm like, I don't want to forget. So like just doing that and also like normalizing check-ins, just be like, hey, like I know like we haven't talked in a while, but like how are you doing? How are you feeling? Because I feel like even if you haven't talked in a while, I feel like it just means a lot to be like, hey, how's life been going? How are you feeling? Like, is there anything going on? Just because like I find that sometimes if they haven't reached out, it's because they're also going through something and they're also mad at life sometimes. So I'm just like, I feel like just normalizing check-ins, and at least for me, the hardest ones to keep are the people that I don't see every day. I feel like that. I feel like I'm like a goldfish, and it's bad. Like it shouldn't be that way. I'm trying to fix to the point where I'm like I keep her on my messages. Like I try to send her messages and I try to be there, but like it also goes back to the point where like I want to have a full conversation. Sometimes I don't have the energy to reply, or sometimes I'm just like, I only want to see the people that are that like I have the I guess I never need to have the energy for. So sometimes it's multiple things, and at the same time it's like it all comes down to just having the energy sometimes, but also wanting to make it a priority of not forgetting those people.
Yeah, I think I definitely think of people like I'll be like, oh, I haven't talked to so and so in some time, and because I'm always not always on Instagram, but like I go on it every day. I feel like that kind of reminds me of people. Like, oh, they're still there and they're doing okay, like whatever they're posting. And then I like going on off of what Leslie said, like I do like check-ins, like hey, like how are you doing? Like we haven't talked in a while. Like I know there's this friend that I know since like middle school, and like we don't talk like very often, but whenever I see her, it's very like natural. Like it's very like, hey, how are you doing? And then she tells me what she's doing, and then I tell her about me, and then it like becomes like one time this was a time whenever I did have like a hangout on a whim. I went to Walmart and I saw her, and then we just started like catching up. So I feel like even if we haven't seen each other in a while or talked in a while, like things are still okay. Like we can just kind of like picked up where we left from.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was someone that I like one of my coworkers that I became friends with. They like they had the idea that like if we had not talked in a while, we had beef or like we had something. There was like tension there. And then I had to explain to them like, no, like we don't have to talk every day. Like, things are still okay between us. Like nothing has happened. Like you haven't done anything, I haven't done anything. So I feel like it really depends too on like the type of relationship you have with the person and how they like perceived you as well. If that makes sense. Yeah.
I feel like for me, what makes it hard to like manage those relationships is like feeling like you're the only one reaching out, whereas like I'm the only one putting out this energy in. Is it gonna be a one-way relationship? Like if I don't reach out, am I ever gonna hear from them again? I think that's something I struggle with a lot of these object permanence relationships kind of thing.
Yeah.
And do you guys often feel the same way, where like if you notice that you're the only one reaching out, where you kind of feel discouraged to continue reaching out, or you think it's just like that's your role in the friendship and don't take it like as a rejectful way, you know what I mean?
I think for me, I feel like it has to be a two-way street. I feel like I am no longer in the sense of just giving all my energy. I'm just like, hey, like I feel like I'm putting in a little bit more. Like I try to communicate that and just see how that goes because it's hard. Like just communicating needs and feelings and how you're feeling is hard. So just being like, hey, I wish this was a little bit more two-sided. And there are people that definitely I can go a while without talking, but I don't know, like you know how like every friendship is individual and you know what every friendship looks like to you. Um, and I feel like for at least for the one specific friendship I have, it's like we may have not have seen each other in a while, but I also know that that person is one of the few people who can tell when I'm really going through it. So like I make the time and the energy to be like, well, she hasn't reached out. I know it's because she's busy. She's probably going through her own burning fire and like just making sure to check in. But I also know it's a two-sided street and just ensuring that like all my friendships are that way because I'm like I went through a phase where I'm like I thought any friendship was a good friendship and it's like no, like there are like things that like you need to be fulfilled in that friendship and I want them to be fulfilled as well and like if there's anything I can do like I'll gladly like I'll sit down and talk about it like that to me is no problem but I just want to make sure that it's a two-sided friendship. It's not just one-sided where I'm getting all my emotional needs fulfilled and or where they're getting all their emotional needs fulfilled.
I've had that situation before where I was the only person like reaching out to a person and they weren't reciprocating. But this isn't always the case, obviously. But that person eventually, when we talked about this, that person was saying like, well, sometimes when I reach out to people, I feel like a burden and like stuff like that. So that's why communication is so important. You have to talk about these things. You have to say, okay, well, you see this problem now. How do we fix it?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's really important. I mean, yeah, I've definitely gotten discouraged if at first I wait it out. Like I'm like, if I see if there's a pattern, like, is it really like this every time? Or is it just like me kind of just feeling that way in the moment? But I feel like what everyone has said, communicating is just really important. Like I feel like people throw it left and right, but communication really is key. And it's probably one of the hardest things to do, like communicating and being honest. But I think, I feel like I've said this in other episodes, but that's like breaking the generational cycle of like, the like older generation sometimes like didn't communicate and then they hold grudges and like they hold stuff against people and like say it behind their backs. So I feel like if you wanna like if the relationship is worth it, if the friendship is worth it, and you want to cherish that, I feel like communication is really important. Like, if it's something worth keeping, like it's worth, communicating about it. Um, and then if you communicate your needs and, that goes south, then you kind of get your answer that maybe it's not something that's worth your energy and time.
Oh, what's interesting is just like the fact that I feel like it also depends on the mentality you have. Just because I know that when some people say, "Hey, let's sit down and talk," I think their first response is like flight or fight. They're like,
Yeah.
"Do I ghost this person? Like, what's gonna happen?" Because I just learned that like when wanting to talk and sit down with somebody, not everybody is gonna have the same response that I do. Not everybody's gonna think, well, maybe they're just like wanting to chat about something, or like even if it's just discussing about my needs and like their needs, it's like they're not always on the same page of like, hey, like let's work this out. Like sometimes that fight or flight kicks in just because we haven't been taught to communicate, or like maybe they're not in therapy, so they haven't learned that, hey, like my needs are important and maybe this is something I should communicate. Because I've like gotten to the point where like I've point blank asked them like, hey, like, would you have reached out about this if I hadn't? They're like, no. Because we like we haven't been taught to communicate. Like the people who have are people who at least I've found like in my case, or the friendships where I've like talk to people about like communication, and where we have communicated, are people who have also gone to therapy and have also been like, oh well, yeah, I need to learn how to communicate how I feel about things. And I feel like those are like the friendships where I find myself most satisfied, just because I feel like we both have an understanding of, hey, like this is a friendship that's here to make us both happy, and like it may not be a main priority sometimes, like we have other things going on, but like it's there.
Another thought I had was like, I feel like it is what like it's really based on if do you think the friendship is worth salvaging, if you think it's a really important friend in your life and you want to keep them around, even if you're the only one reaching out, and you know that you're to communicate that it's just, oh, I forget to reach out, and you guys that you guys both have this object permanence problem. You're like, okay, if I remember, I'll text you. And I feel like it's just figuring out if it's worth nurturing the relationship yourself, Because I feel like there's some friendships like, you know what, we're probably more friends in middle school, we're just gonna let it whittle out, and if we see each other, we just wave, and that could be the end of the friendship kind of thing. I think it just really depended on if the relationship is worth it, and if you do continue want to keep this person in your life, even if it's not like a negative thing where you want to break up friendship. It's just, you know what, I think our chapter has ended, and now we're having our own lives kind of thing.
Yeah.
Well, that was today's PodCAPS. Just in general discussing on how we manage these friendships and what we do and how we feel about our things. I hope some things we say resonate with you guys, and just always keep in mind that communication is probably the easiest way to solve a lot of issues instead of assuming the worst. Kind of, especially college students, especially this generation, we tend to overthink a lot and just, assume the worst. And sometimes it's just a simple, oh, I forgot. It's just no need to overthink all your friendship for a simple slip of the mind. And if anything we said resonate with you, or things you feel like you need to work on and kind of communicate with other people professionally, you could reach out to the counseling service we have at UTA, our counseling psychological services office, schedule an appointment. Maybe that's something you need to work on and have someone there to coach you through it. But have a good rest of your semester, week, life, year. Have a good day.